Did you know that the most degrading thing ever done is the grooming that has been done to Africans and people of African descent to always think that whatever is wrong in their lives, whatever is wrong in our lives is the fault of what someone did to us a couple of centuries ago. And of course, people who are already dead, but we are told to believe and accept that we cannot progress today because of what was done to us. If you interview Africans today, and I'm very sure 8 out of 10 will tell you the reason why their countries are perhaps underdeveloped is due to colonization, something that happened almost a century ago. And in the West, of course, they're going to tell you it's slavery because their ancestors were enslaved. That is why they are still lagging behind today. Now, the challenge with such thinking is that we victimize ourselves and localize a predicament. Obviously, by this, I'm not downplaying the consequences of these things, but the truth is, colonization is not peculiar to Africa. Even within the African continent itself, tribes colonize one another, and it was always been the thing with humans, the stronger must prey on the weak, and the weak have to pay tribute or give some of their people as slaves or whatever the case to survive and to cohabitate. Slavery likewise, whether it's in the West, whether it's in Africa, whether it's in Asia, the pattern and the principle has always been the same. When humans have power that they can wield over others, they wield that power. So now back to what we're talking about is, are you really behind today because of what was done to your ancestors several years ago? Now you may think, okay, that's true. Like I said, I'm not downplaying the consequences of this. These may have brought, and these certainly brought some disadvantages to these people and to us as a whole. But then, it's not enough excuse to why we are not putting to use our potentials and our amazing abilities today, because we say, well, we are already disadvantaged. Because history will show us that there are a lot of people who have gone through the worst of experiences, the worst of tortures, but have still come out to rise to be on top. Whether we are looking at distant history like the story of the Israelites in Egypt, or the recent history with the Jews, and yet these people didn't settle on their predicament, didn't settle to whine about what they lost or what they could have had or what they could have been today if this and that had not happened to their fathers. But they did one thing, and that's what I'm challenging you today to do, which is take responsibility for their lives. That's pretty much it. We first understand that given that all these things, whether it's slavery or colonization, is not peculiar to us, it's something that is peculiar to the human race in general, the consequences, nonetheless, it means that there is this fantasy idea that people think that for there to be justice, we probably have to, redistribute things so that all of us start equal. You keep complaining about the fact that we are a little bit disadvantaged. True, there is a disadvantage when you suffer from a form of discrimination, but the fact is, nonetheless, you have the capacity and the power to surmount any form of discrimination, because nature in itself, nature is not fair, nature is not equal, nature is not just. For example, Asia alone has more than 70 mountains with peaks higher than 6,000 meters, and Africa has none. Now, this doesn't make Africa any less than Asia. When you look at wildlife, likewise, Africa has a very high discriminatory proportion compared to Asia and other parts of the world. So the distribution in nature of whether it's resources or wealth in quotes is not even. Like, all of us must start at the same. And even if all of us did start at the same, we are not the same people. We don't have the same passion, the same drives, the same definitions for success. So down the line, things are still going to balance themselves the way they are right now. Why is that, you may ask? Is because of principles. Principles say that whatever you're doing with the little you have now, even if you had more, that's precisely what you're going to do with the more. If you're wasting what you have, the little, even if you had more, you're going to waste the more. Someone is famous for saying that a lizard in Africa is not automatically going to become an alligator in the West. To say, it's first and foremost who you are. If you decide to break free from the victim mentality and decide to remember that phrase, to take responsibility for your life, then it doesn't matter the odds with which you're starting or the disadvantages with which you're starting. And remember, it's not so much about you as it's about the next generation. You can lay the foundation. Perhaps you may not see the level of, in quotes, success that you dream of, but once you lay the right foundation, moving in the right direction, foundation, the next generation, your kids, your grandkids can build on that. But if we spend our time complaining on what we don't have, then our kids grow up, there is nothing for them to work on. And so it becomes a vicious cycle of desperation, poverty, misery, and mediocrity. It's a simple truth. The past wasn't kind to us. I'm talking us here Africans, and not just us, but even to many people. And another fact is the future doesn't necessarily promises to be kind. But what we do have now is a present that we can do something about. So if you learn nothing from this video, then the one thing you can take is that it doesn't matter what disadvantages you're starting with. The human will, the human focus, the human spirit is strong enough, resilient enough to break through any form of disadvantage. And the second thing is you have to stop thinking just about yourself. You may not be able to achieve it in a lifetime, but if you lay the foundation for the generations to come, I mean, where we are today, we didn't achieve that by ourselves. We are building on the things which the people before us sacrificed. Many of them didn't even see the benefits of their sacrifices, but today we are benefiting from that. So we can stop really whining about what happened in the past and continue building so that the next generation can have something to appreciate from us. So today I want you to look in the mirror and see the person that is standing in the way of your success, the person that is standing in the way of all you can become. The person you see in the mirror, when you look in that mirror, that is exactly the person responsible for that. Decide today to work on that person you're seeing in the mirror. And if we all do the same, changing the people we see in the mirror ourselves, then the future looks brighter. Definitely not downplaying the consequences and the disadvantages that, whether it's colonization or slavery does to a people, but not localizing it also helps us to understand that we are not just the only ones who have been victims of that. I mean, my great-grandparents had slaves. Their relatives went into slaves. If you had a debt that you couldn't pay, you had to pay with yourself or with your son or with your daughter. That was the norm of life in a society where there weren't any legislation or laws to organize them. So things had to be done that way. So if we keep thinking it was peculiar to us, then we blind ourselves to the fact that others have come out of it and still risen to the top, and therefore abort our own potentials to be able to achieve such feats as well. If you're breaking free out of the victim mentality, then click that like button. But of course, if you want to hold on to the victimhood and the victim mindset, then you can dislike the video. That's up to you. And if you enjoyed the video, hit the subscribe and the notification bell. If you're new here, I want to say a big shout out to our amazing family of patrons. You supporting our work really help us to continue creating content like this. You too can do same. Check the link in the description below. So thank you so much for watching, and until the next video, stay blessed. That's our time in this video. I believe you were inspired by this channel.